Okay guys, so for this project what we are going to do is really focus on shape. Now again, we're going to use several of the other elements of art as well. You can see we've got lots of color. You can see that we're kind of revisiting that line quality that we talked about. But what we're really focusing on is a specific kind of shape. And that kind of shape is called a geometric shape. Okay? Pablo Picasso used a lot of geometric type shapes in his artwork, so we're going to kind of mimic that in our project. So you can see here is a couple of finished examples. And you can see these portraits they're not supposed to be super realistic. They're kind of abstract. They're kind of funky and a little bit out there. So, in order to start one of these, what you're going to do is you're going to take all of these shapes, and these are just shapes that you can trace, random shapes, okay? And I might start with kind of a larger one, and I'm going to decide where the head is going to be. So if you kind of lightly trace around, you want to think very large facial structures right now. So we've got the whole head. We might even do, here we'll do a neck. And you don't have to line these up perfectly. If you want to kind of use it like this, just to get the neck in there, that's fine. In fact, I think I might do something kind of like this. So I've got like a collar on the shirt, and then I will give my person some shoulders. This one's going to be up a little higher. I kind of like that a little more than having the neck go all the way to the bottom. Okay, so you can see we've got a head, we've got a neck, we've got shoulders. Very basic facial structures right now. Then what you're going to do is you're going to go in and you're going to add a section for each facial feature. So this one will be the mouth, and you can kind of play around with it. Do you want it to kind of tilt a little bit? Do you want it totally in the box? Do you want it kind of overlapping a little bit? I kind of like the way it looks when they overlap, so I'm going to do this. And then as you go, try and erase any of the lines where it's overlapping a different object. So we've got a mouth. I think I want to use this one for a nose. And I'm going to have it overlap just a little again. But you don't have to. Now this will not be your final nose and your final mouth. He would look pretty crazy if that's all we did. We're going to draw in more facial features later. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to keep it pretty basic with this one. This is going to be an eye over here. But I'm just going to use this part. And then the other eye is going to be a little bit longer and kind of tilted like this. Okay. And then I also, while I'm at it, I'm going to add some eyebrows. And okay, had a little break in the video, but as you can see, what I just did is I continued to add a few extra details like hair, the ears, and a bow tie, things like that. So be creative, think about using up a lot of your page, and again, we're just thinking about the basic structures right now. We'll go ahead and add in the facial features later. So it'll end up looking something like this. A nose or a mouth inside of the shape that you're going to draw now. Okay? So go ahead and get to this point, and then we'll move on with the next step. Okay, so once you have all of your basic geometric shapes in, I want you to think about the work of Pablo Picasso and kind of look at some of his crazy facial features. He kind of drew them in really weird positions, looking different ways, and just making sure that he's using very angular and geometric shapes. So what you're going to do is you're going to kind of go in and draw in some of those shapes. So here, this is where my nose is going to go. And so now I'm just going to go ahead and freehand all of this, but I am going to make sure that everything is very geometric and measurable and angular. Okay, so here we've got a nose. Let's do like a winking eye. So that'll be like the eyelid. We can do a mouth. We can do, let's see, I'm just kind of looking at some examples of some Picasso work here. Let's do a really funky sort of triangular eye here. Okay, kind of starting to come together. And then let's see, maybe some eyebrows. Looks like I forgot to erase a few little spots up here. So let's kind of keep this pretty geometric looking. Kind of an upside down Nike symbol there. There. And then I need to draw in some ears. So you can keep them pretty simple, just kind of do something like that. And then a lot of times what I like to do is just add, since there's so much detail up here, I just like to add a few little things down here. Like, I don't know, on the neck I might just break it into 2 different sections. Add a little detail to the tie here. Maybe make it look like he's wearing something fancy since he's got his tie on. Alright, so now I've got all my facial features drawn in. So again, think about keeping things geometric, angular, very measurable, and nameable. Okay, so once you have all of this done, then it is time to trace. So remember, you're going to have your Sharpies, you're going to have a regular point, you're going to have an ultra fine point, and you're going to have a chisel tip to work with. So you can get lots of different widths of line. Okay, so we're going to kind of set those aside. Remember, when you're working with Sharpie, you need to get a piece of scrap paper and put it underneath so that the marker doesn't bleed onto the table. Okay, so if we go back and look at some of my finished examples, you can see that I'm using really thick lines, I'm using thinner lines, and it looks like I'm using just a few really super thin lines as well. Okay, so I always like to start with my thickest lines first, but you don't necessarily have to. You can do whatever feels right to you. Okay, and a lot of times I like to make sure there's a really thick line on each major shape. And if you kind of keep them all on the same side, like if I make this on the left side and the bottom, then I might kind of do the same thing here on the left side and the bottom. And maybe I want this one not quite as thick. So see how I just turned my chisel. Okay. You want to kind of think about a couple things that you want to stand out. Usually the nose is the part on the face that stands out the most. So I'll kind of do that. Maybe I want to kind of thicken this one up. Maybe I'll do along the bottom of the eyes. So I'm just kind of picking a few places where I want that really thick line. Then all you're going to do is trace the rest of it using your other kinds of lines. You've got your regular point and you've got your ultra fine point. So go ahead and finish tracing everything, and then make sure you take an eraser to it and erase any pencil marks that you can see. Okay, so once you get everything traced, then it is time to start coloring. And we are going to color with markers. So before we get started, there's just a couple things I kind of want to go over with you. And I'll just start with a blue. Now, sometimes you'll notice that when you're coloring, you might kind of go along like this, and then you'll fill in another section. And you'll fill in another section. And you might kind of go like this. But what you'll kind of notice if you do that is you end up with these really dark spots along here. So instead of kind of coloring like that, there's a couple of things you can do. If you're one of those people that likes to color with lines, you can kind of go like that. Or if you're not one of those people, that's totally fine too. You can, if you have like a large area that you want to color in, you can kind of go like this. Start going down and then up and then down like this. You still get little tiny dark spots, but they're not as noticeable as if you were to color like this. So those are some things that I want you to kind of keep in mind as you are coloring. Also, let's make sure we get everything colored in nice and solid, because this looks a lot better than this. Am I right? I sure think so. Okay, so aim for this, not for this. Okay? So, you can kind of start with any colors that you want. You can stick to kind of like skin colors for your major pieces if you want. But then you can also bring in some really bright colors into some other things too. There's really no right or wrong way to do this, as long as you kind of color everything in solid to begin with. Okay? Okay, now to finish this off, what we're going to do is add a little bit of hatching. And hatching is just a bunch of really short little lines, and it's just another way of shading or showing some value. Okay, so it just makes it brings a little more dimension to your overall piece and adds a little bit of texture and a little bit of value. So you can see I kind of try and stay to the left side, the left in the bottom corner, whenever I am adding my hatching. And you can also see that the colors that I'm using are not all the same. I use something that's similar to the background color. So like on this peach one, I used a little bit of brown. On the pink, I used a darker pink. On the red, I used a darker red, etc., etc. Okay? So I want you to kind of think about that as you are working. And sometimes if you have a pretty dark color already, like my brown is kind of dark over here, even if you just go over it with the same kind of brown, it'll show up. Okay? So you don't want to make the lines so short that they hardly show up, but you don't want to make them so long that they take up the whole page either. So let's see if it'll show up on this. I think it shows up enough. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of leave that there. But I might switch to a darker brown. I mean a lighter brown for the lighter skin color. So again, I'm kind of keeping to the left and the bottom. And you don't necessarily have to do it over here on this side. Maybe over here on the ear though. And then let's see how well the red shows up on the red. I get a little bit, and that's fine. I might put a little more on the cheeks. And I might do some on the nose, since it usually stands out pretty far from the face. And since I used black, I'll try the black marker over it, and if that doesn't show up very well, I'll use some Sharpie. But I just want to add a little bit over here. That's okay. And then when you feel like you're finished, make sure you sign your name down at the bottom corner somewhere. And put the year.